And we are off.
We are live.
Welcome to episode 15 of The Paradigm Shift.
Yes, sir.
Today I'm joined with a good friend of mine. I won't say a long time friend, but
Long enough.
But
Yeah.
we've actually made like a proper connection since we've met at the beginning. So
Yeah.
I'm with my friend Dave Smith today, host of, a third of
One-third.
the Charge It to the Game podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you
Yeah.
for joining me today, bro.
Thanks for having me, man. I'm not the only one that's from the Culture Shop roster. So you had a matter of opinion on
Yeah.
previously. Yeah, so it's good. This is like before we kind of went on, we obviously had a little catch up. So it's like, it's one of them things where you haven't seen your friend in a minute, but kind of just, you just have a little catch up. You pick up from where you left off. So yeah,
For sure.
yeah, glad to be on, bro. I know this is gonna be a deep one as well. I
Yeah,
know this is
you
gonna be a
already
deep
know
one.
every time
You
we
know
talk.
something, yeah? I haven't done a deep one for a minute because I was obviously I'm on Charge the Game, and sometimes on Charge the Game, if you don't like what we say, well, you can charge it to the game. So we talk a bit of crud sometimes. We chat nonsense sometimes, but sometimes what I've always gotten with the Charger thing is I've always gotten the light skin narrative.
Yeah.
Where I'm sensitive, and I'm the one that is prone to getting deep, and I'm that sort of person. But I'm actually not. Like I'm Can I say crackhead on here?
Yeah.
I'm the crackhead on the podcast. I'm the crazy one sometimes. But I miss like at the start when we first started doing the whole podcasting. I used to love getting introspective and getting deep on the podcast, like with people. Like I love doing conversation. I'm a conversationalist, so I love having deep convo. Like I might be the guy that sits around at 3 a.m. at the round table just having deep convo when people are drunk. So I love it. I'm always a fan of it. So I'm glad to be chopping up with you, of course.
100%.
Having convo, doing that sort of thing. So it's good. It's nice. And Tunji Studio's dope. I love this.
Home studio.
Yeah. One thing with you is like you've always known how to kind of like resource and keep it in-house and stuff like that. And you've always reinvented yourself. Like obviously the listeners probably know, probably from previous podcasts, like you've moved into a new place. This is the thing with Tunji. Tunji moves into a new place, sets up a new studio. Bam. Light work. Light work. So, yeah,
Thank
big
you,
ups to you on that,
Thank
man.
you for the kind words. Man. I appreciate that. So, now that we're on the podcast, the paradigm shift, right?
Yes.
As you know, it's a tradition on the paradigm shift to say a paradigm shift in your life and how that brought you from one place to the next place. Your worldview from that stage, and then something happened.
Yeah.
An event happened. And
Yeah.
then you got to where you are right now. What one really comes to your head? We're going right deep. What one comes to mind, jumps out at you?
Is it going to be hella cliche if I say the pandemic and just better yet, I'd say maybe the second half of the pandemic. So I did the whole, and how many terms did we have of the pandemic? We had about 3 terms. We had the first one, which was 2 months.
Yeah.
Second one, which was 3 months. And then we had the long haul one. That's the 6-month one. And the 6-month one for me was a bit mad because I had to put a lot of different things into perspective. Like, you'd never met me, and I noticed what you like to talk a lot about, like kind of your. I remember the first Paradigm Shift podcast I listened to. You talked about your health journey and your kind of weight loss journey, and it was kind of working in tandem with your mental health. And when you kind of decided to work on the two, and they both worked hand in hand, it's kind of like there's a direct correlation between how your health and how you're feeling. I had the same journey. Now I've been, obviously you kind of hit a stall on the weight loss kind of. Now I'm kind of fluctuating between different. But no, I remember always starting it like I was 20 kg heavier, and during the pandemic, that was what you could say was kind of my paradigm shift. Now I went to a friend at the time, and I'm not gonna lie, like I was feeling a bit depressed about it to an extent, and just I could see the direct kind of health implications it was causing, like health issues it was mainly causing. So I was literally just like, bro, even stuff like walking from A to B was just peak.
Yeah.
Like I'll just be out of breath. The back was hurting.
Man.
I'm hitting 25 now, so the back's hurting anyway. Listen, people, get on turmeric, tablets, get on calcium, get on magnesium. Because listen, from when you hit 25, that body does not play. It doesn't play. But yeah, no, definitely my paradigm shift when I put stuff into perspective was like, listen, I genuinely think I'm not feeling good because I'm not looking good, and it's working hand in hand with each other. Like I wanted to start liking the guy that I saw in the mirror, that sort of thing. I wanted to be able to, because I was always an athletic guy in school, so I was like, I want to be able to like run, never mind walk and be out of breath. I want to start being able to run again. So what I got into for the most part was my paradigm shift was literally like I went to a friend at the time. He was like a PT, and he said in simple words, literally just, calorie deficit, just exercise, your 10K steps, that sort of thing. So I just went. I went by that. Yeah, just something I wanted to kind of vocate myself to for the next kind of few months. Literally, we weren't doing anything else. First 2 terms of the pandemic, I was like, it was nice. You know, not having structure can be fun.
Mm.
You know, in that sense, where the first time I was drinking wine every night, I was hopping on Discord, I was eating whatever I wanted. But I knew inevitably, like, structure would have to come back into my life.
Yeah.
So that's it's a bittersweet thing when you know, okay, from the second this pandemic ends, you know, I don't want to come out of it the worse off because I'm gonna have to have routine, and so I don't want to essentially. I'm already not at a weight I want to be. I'm not at a structure I want to have. I don't want to come out of that even heavier and even more lost in how my structure is. So I tried to do day by day for about 3 months. I just tried to instill like that culture into me of just trying to get back into a routine, like stop eating what I wanted, start kind of, you know, restricting myself in that sense, and most importantly get the 10K steps in, which was great because everybody wanted to do that during the pandemic anyway. So yeah, that was in long story short, that was my paradigm shift. Just literally, try to come back out of this. We're so used to kind of feeling sorry for ourselves about the pandemic. Try to come out of this a better person. So try to come out of this a better person. And it's weird. I don't know if you ever noticed the kind of when people actively see you working on yourself, and then you just naturally get more respect.
Yeah.
You know,
100%.
like it was literally just I got more respect off people because they saw kind of that I was actively trying to work on myself during that time. So, I'm not gonna lie, I'm one of them weird guys that was very, very grateful for the pandemic because it was like a reset for me. Not that I'd ever want to run it back again. Like I'd love to do a day of it just out of curiosity, just to experience it again. Because it was such a weird time, man. Like literally
weird.
just being on Discord, watching whatever. I remember watching Super Bowl finals with my guys on Zoom. But yeah, I'd say I'm overall grateful for it. But that was probably my paradigm shift. I've kind of went through a recent one, kind of just with, I'd say, segueing into adulthood. You know, because they don't really warn you about.
Let's go into this.
They don't warn you about being an adult, bro.
Yeah.
Like I'm still trying to use Pythagoras theorem for something. I'm still trying to use BEMDAS for something. They're not warning you about holding down bills or, you know, having the same sort of routine or, you know, that was the most kind of violent transition I'd say for myself. Like,
for sure.
Like literally, I started my 9 to 5 job. The last time me and Tunji would have even done a podcast, I wouldn't even have had a 9 to 5 job. I still would have been doing the light shift here and there and pennies. But when I went into doing 9 to 5, I went through like a honeymoon phase with the job. Where I was happy with the job and, you know, I really enjoyed it and I just loved. I was talking to you off mic about how I have friends in the job now where I talk to them like nearly, or we go out nearly. We went through a phase where we were going out nearly every 2 weeks. But I enjoyed that aspect. It was a honeymoon phase. Like I was really liking the job kind of from the start. But they never kind of tell you like the routine you kind of get into with the job where it's just, I don't know, it gets, what's the word? Monotonous.
Yeah.
It's kind of just, it gets repetitive and you have the routine and you try to add stuff to the routine. Obviously, like still going to the gym was a large aspect of my life. I got really consistent with the podcast, Charge the Game with my fellow co-hosts, Dej and Jordan, and we got consistent with that. We had a conversation about that where it gets serious. But just, I told you off mic that I put my best foot forward with everything. And I heavily invested myself in everything I wanted to, each respective thing that I wanted to do. So work, I wanted to be that guy in work. Like I knew, I was aware of my position in work. Like I wanted to be the vibes guy in work. Like the guy that worked hard, but instill kind of like good feeling amongst the workplace, that sort of thing. And maybe kind of we'll see from there what aspects are in my career kind of thing. But I said I wanted to throw myself into it, be as involved as possible in each different things. I took part in other committees, different extracurricular things. In the gym, I was still going to the gym X amount of weeks. I was doing a podcast. Sometimes on a busy week, twice a week, like with the guys. But they never warn you about just how kind of in them hours in between, you know. And let's face it, like we're not all like Tunji's a productive guy, you know what I mean? Tunji's a productive guy. Tunji's making the most of 24 hours kind of thing. I do too. I be productive whenever I can, but it just wasn't really. It got to a stage where certain things weren't really fulfilling me, I'd say. And that was my paradigm shift. That kind of adulthood is just trying to keep yourself busy, trying to keep yourself not to sound negative, but more so realistic. Like adulthood is what you make of it, and sometimes when you do get caught in a perpetual cycle, just repetitiveness, it stops hitting as much. So I wanted change in my life. So I feel like we're gonna get into a little bit where what changes I'm going for in my life, kind of thing, you know.
So to add to that, you know,
Yeah.
people don't warn you about adulthood when you get
Mm-hmm.
into it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you just think that it's great, but the only aspect that people think is great is the fact that you're making your own money now.
Yeah.
But nobody tells you about what comes with making your own money.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so you have now that you make your own money, you're now responsible for things.
Yeah.
You know, you're responsible for everything. You're
Yeah.
responsible to pay your bills. You're responsible to pay for your car. You're responsible to pay back loans. You're responsible to pay for all of this stuff. If you want to go on dates, you have to pay for that. If you want to go out with your friends, you need to pay for that. And like nobody's borrowing money to you. Everybody's busy all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's very hard to get everyone's schedule to kind of work out. Like we planned this like 2 weeks ago, maybe even longer than that.
Yeah.
You know, to try and make this happen.
Hella money,
right?
not enough time.
That's literally it. So it's
Yeah.
like you don't have enough time, and then sometimes you'll feel the like what you said, the perpetual state of like doing the same thing
Mm-hmm.
over
Mm-hmm.
and over and
Mhm.
over and over again,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's like sometimes it feels like you're stuck in a rut. It's like, oh, I want to escape. You want to do something. It feels like something is like you just feel like something's missing,
Mm-hmm.
right? And he's like, is this all that life is? You start
Yeah.
questioning. It's like, so this is all that life is. All the parents that are, and this is what made me realize that parents don't know what they're talking about, right? A lot of the times, parents are just as clueless as their kids. They're just kind of telling you what they think you should do, but not for a fact what you should do. It's like go to school and then do your best in school, and then get yourself a job, and then work your job, and then get married, and then
Yeah.
have kids, and then die. You know,
Yeah.
and then take your 1 month, take your 1 week or 2 week family holiday per year. You know, it's
Well,
the same thing.
what parents are really trying to do, they're really trying to set you up for like life when they're not there.
Yeah,
But in real time, they're trying to figure out life themselves.
exactly.
So it's literally like it's literally one of them things like you think to have it figured out, and then you do hit that age where you figure out that your parent is also like a flawed person. There's a
Human
lot of
being.
elements to it. There's a lot of nuances to their life as well, and there's a lot of nuances to them as well.
Mm.
Like I still discover new stuff about my parents every single day. So it was my dad's birthday yesterday, and he turned 52. And honestly, like I don't have this stoic image of my dad.
Yeah.
Like my dad has always been expressive in certain areas and in other areas, and he's always told me about how he always wanted to be more expressive with me as a child, because yeah, let's face it, my granddad was a stoic character. Like, was nothing phased him, nothing moved him, nothing. Like, he was like, sure, feck it anyway, you know what I mean? He didn't really care. But my dad has always been a bit expressive, but in certain aspects he was a bit not stoic as much as probably nonchalant. Like, not he was never phased about his birthdays. So what was mad to me, what I discovered is this felt like the first birthday where he was very excited about his birthday.
Really,
Yeah, like almost like a not to slag him off, but like a teenage girl.
really.
He was buzzing about his birthday. Like he said, we're gonna do axe throwing, then we're gonna do this, then I have a nice place for breakfast. And I'm like, I've never seen him that kind of enthusiastic about his own birthday. And it was like a discovery for me. It was literally like, I've never seen my dad ever be this enthusiastic about his birthday.
Yeah.
So we did stuff, and it was literally just, I don't know if I played a part, obviously, in the fact that I only have a month left, I'm moving and stuff like that. He's trying to insist, oh yeah, it's only because you're moving, I want to do something together. But I just genuinely saw this kind of like light in his face that like he was glad we're doing something for my birthday. But yeah, not even to deviate that much. It's just I discovered new things about my parents. Like, we're sitting there and we're having a few drinks, and we're just having conversations about different things. And bro, I don't even know how this conversation came up, but it's just a conversation of I think it segued into talking about my sister writing, and because he had other people there, and they're like, oh, what do you do? And I was like, oh, my sister's more talented and stuff. She's the more talented. She's the one that sings. But I've always had a creative mind kind of thing, which I attribute that to my dad. I obviously get some characteristics from my mom, of course, you know what I mean.
Yeah, naturally.
Yeah. But the creative side is my dad. But to add on top of that, I was telling these guys, yeah, my sister's more talented one. She's the one that can write a song from the sky. She can sing. She's always thought I could write as well. And I said that, and I said, oh yeah, and I said, not to sound cheesy, but I used to, bro, every fella thought he could rap. And had a little diary where he wrote down a few little bars.
Everyone, bro.
Yeah, guarantee you have it hiding somewhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, my dad turned around to me and says, you know what, I used to do the same. My dad would not strike me as the type of person that would write down songs if he's feeling something. Do you know what I mean? And I was the same. I said I used to just do it as like, I don't know.
Vent.
Yeah, to vent.
Yeah.
I used to write down stuff. If stuff pissed me off, I used to write it down and nearly try to do it in song form and rhyming scheme or something like that.
That's like your outlet. It's
I'm
like
not
a
gonna
release.
lie, I could never say that to my dad though.
Yeah.
It's just like, well, you know, I won't even say it, but
Yeah.
you just be literally like, what are you on about? Like, why are you writing down shit? And but he said he used to do the same.
Yeah.
So it was kind of
You're getting to know him. Like,
yeah, I'm getting to
you're
know him.
realizing
Like,
that he's actually just a normal
yeah,
guy.
like there's still revelations with your parents to this day.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more I find out about my mom, and there's a lot more, and it's kind of just it's a surreal feeling that there's still revelations to your parents, because and especially when you're a teenager and you think you have your parents figured out, and that's where where the conflict is.
Yeah.
Because we also had a conversation about how we used to argue and stuff like that, and you know he was always of the idea, I only argued with you because I was trying to mold you as a person, as a son. And it goes back to what I said, parents are only really trying to mold you to be a person when they're not around.
Yeah.
And I've read that sort of rhetoric in books a lot of time, like you raise your child the way the world's gonna see them, not how you view them. So for instance, if your child is in preschool or in primary school and you're really just raising them to be this crappy person, like you have to understand and be privy to the fact that you're not going to be around one day, and who's going to be the critic of them is the world, not the parents.
Exactly.
So if you're conditioning your child to be a crappy person, it's going to reflect in everything they do, and everybody's going to feel this, and essentially it's going to make for a harder life for them when you're not around. So that's always kind of what parents have been trying to do, trying to mold their kid into something, like, do you know what I mean? Like, raise your kid the way the world will view your kid. Simple. In theory, it's straightforward. Now, a lot of parents don't know how to do that because it's like perpetual parenting kind of thing. But yeah, like that's what I'm saying. The conflict is, it gets to a stage where your parent is trying to do that, but you think you have your parent figured out.
Yeah.
And that's where the conflict kind of comes through. It's literally like
100%.
it's literally just like, nah, like you're rebelling. Like me and my dad had a conversation. He has the theory that I was rebelling, but I was a bit like, no, I was only rebelling because I started figuring out you're a flawed person, but I thought I had you figured out entirely.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here now on this mic as a 25-year-old man. I said it to him last night. I said, the thing is with my dad and my mom, I still need my dad and mom around.
Yeah.
Like I recognize that now as a 25-year-old man. And as a 25-year-old man, I'm still discovering my parents.
100%. And not only that, still discovering yourself.
Yeah.
As you're discovering them, that kind of gives you more indication, right? Like,
Yeah.
I had the same revelation with my own parents. I'm just like, oh, they're just human beings as well.
Yeah.
They're just flawed human beings, carved by their own environments and their own experiences.
Facts.
So they went through stuff, and as a result of that, that kind of fed into their kids, right? And because we are in a better position than they would have been, right? Like for my parents, they came to Ireland. I'm first generation here. And, you know, they didn't care about, it doesn't matter about, you know, trying to, like, we get to just chill. We could just chill.
Yeah.
They didn't have that. It's like, we need to, like, we have kids. We need to find something to do.
When you're deep, you know, it's crazy.
They went through a lot to bring us here. And then, so it's like, none of that stuff was actually like mad important to them. The stuff that was important is putting food on the table, providing for these kids, and you know whatever else. At least like I say, I tried my best. But one thing we can't take away from our parents is they did the best with what they had. The tools that they had at their disposal at the time, they tried their best. Flawed as they may have been, you know, things could have been a different way. But at the end of the day, they've tried their very best with what they had, and you can't flaw them on that.
Facts. Like you've said it best. Like and that's the thing. Like I can always remember to my mom kind of, to get on a deep one, to be honest. Like my mom's parents both passed, and I've said it before in the podcast. My mom's parents both passed within the same year, in the 90s, pretty much within the same year. Like I think my grandmother was ill, and then my grandfather, I think, he passed away kind of within a few months. I think it was kind of that played a part in it, kind of, you know, when they say you die of a heartbreak and that sort of thing. So my mom kind of got thrusted into it. It was like suddenly now, with her being the oldest, culturally from a Zambian standpoint, when you're the oldest, you have to kind of take responsibility and take a lot of onus on how the other kids are kind of getting on and stuff like that. And it's like she had to make decisions quite quick at a quite, you know, infant age. Like literally before she knew it, before she could even kind of navigate as a teenager, she had to move to England to study and, you know, try send money back to Zambia and try
take
be the person, like be the man and the woman of the house. You know what I mean? All in one. So I especially see it. I see it through my mom and I see it through my dad. See, my dad had to take a decision. At the time when England was kind of booming economically and just booming for work, he had to take a decision at a young age, like 19, to go to England, and it's like before you kind of even get to know. I'm a 25-year-old now. There could be generational differences there where they have to figure out stuff quicker, therefore they figure themselves out quicker. But at the end of the day, you have to put into you kind of have to like contextualize it. Like they're young, like they're barely teenagers coming into adulthood, and they have to do that.
Right?
So I always kind of put into that perspective. I'm like, that's why sometimes maybe I think my parents haven't even figured themselves out.
Yeah,
like because they had to do everything quite young,
quite quick as well.
quite fast.
They
Yeah.
had to make a decision and just stick by
Yeah.
the decision. They didn't really get to think about what it was they were doing.
And like you said, we're the next generation, and
Yeah.
with us like being the next generation, we have agency to make choice.
Yeah.
Like, do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
like we can sit there and go, do you know what? I feel like traveling.
yeah,
I feel like going to Thailand for a few months. I feel like going to Canada for a little bit. They didn't really have a choice.
no, not at all.
No, like,
Crazy, man.
yeah, it's mad.
Yeah. So I guess that's what humanizes them, because imagine 19-year-olds having to make the decisions that our parents had to make.
Yeah,
You know, they wouldn't be able to cope
Yeah.
because you see that like mental health issues and all of these crazy things are happening in the world. All this confusion and lost thinking and stuff like that is happening. You know, imagine being trusted with things like that have to happen to you. Like you have
Yeah.
to grow up super quick,
Mhm.
and it's because we were kind of given a great opportunity as we're growing up. We
Mhm.
didn't need to go through all of those things. So I think that's like really, really interesting. Like parents, we understand you lot are humans too, you know. So, but when kids, it's very hard to actually make kids understand these things. And now I'm realizing, learning from my parents, that we're also going to go through what we put our parents through with our own kids, you know. And then we'll realize, oh, this is what I put my parents through. I get it now. And we won't fully understand
I'm
it
not gonna
until
lie
we
as
have our
well.
own kids.
Tunji, I hate admitting it too.
Yeah.
I hate doing that. My dad, you know, my mom's right about that, you know, or my dad was right about that. Because you think they're so off at the time. Like I said, you think you have them figured out. And
you
it's
know
like,
everything.
you don't know. Like, do you know what I mean? You're just like, I figured you out. You're a mere mortal like me. You're not my big
Yeah.
superhero dad or superhero mom
Yeah.
and stuff. But then it kind of comes back around. You're like, nah, like, they're right, man.
Yeah.
They're right, you know. It's crazy.
Straight up.
It's the same. Like, I wonder the same. And I think, like, a large focus of my day yesterday was just on fatherhood, because then I even met like his girlfriend's granddad as well, who kind of, his principles and the way he carried himself reminded me a lot of my late granddad kind of thing. So I felt like the theme of yesterday was like fatherhood.
Yeah.
I was kind of deep in that as well. I was literally like, what way will my child perceive me?
Yeah.
Like, will I, as soon as from, because you obviously hear this thing, like, as soon as the child's born, it changes it, and it's like you have this onus now to look after a child. How will I find that balance to kind of be a father, but also just be a person to my child? Like, my fear is that, like, and perpetual parenting is a real thing, do you know what I mean? And, like, there's still only stuff towards late that I'm discovering about my dad, and I did have that phase where my dad was tough on me and stuff, and I'm like, will that repeat itself, where, you know, my son gets to discover me maybe later, but for a while he probably think I'm quite stoic and quite kind of, you know, tough. I don't know. Like that, I'm thinking out loud a little bit here.
Yeah, of course.
but
No, that's what we're here. It's
that's-
open dialogue. man.
yeah. That's how I was deep in it kind of yesterday.
I think that's really interesting. And another thing that I think is, I think that this is a hot take that a lot of people might not agree with.
Okay.
I think that stoic kind of hard, kind of rock, kind of solid mentality, it's something that's really going to be needed later on. Because I feel like, you know, our parents had it, right? They could have fixed a few things here and there, but ultimately I think that's a system that works. Because if there's a man, like, just imagine you were growing up and your dad was kind of like wavering in his decision making and stuff like that. Imagine how and much anxiety that would kind of bring in. Not only it would affect the relationship with his wife, but also affect the relationship with the kids. It's like, you know, we don't know when our next meal is coming. Imagine he's just as like emotional as a mom. You know, like, I feel like someone needs to be that kind of hard person, and we need that stoic kind of hard person in our lives as men.
Life is hard though. It's
Oh,
hard, man.
100%. Like,
hard.
you need men like that in the world. And if you don't, it's scary, because number one, women will ultimately try and take on that responsibility for themselves. So women will even be in their feminine. They'll be in their masculine, right? And as a result of that, then masculine women and a masculine man will never get along. It doesn't work.
Speak on that, yeah.
She needs to be in her femininity. So at the end of the day, but if you're not somebody that is solid on your principles and know exactly what you need to do in order to lead your family, then you can't expect her to step in her feminine when she's expected to kind of step up in a bunch
I
of
hear
areas
that.
in her life
Yeah.
as well. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
She has to step out of her natural role
Yeah.
because you're lacking in that area. And if you have men like that, and there is a lot of men like that, soft ass, don't want to just get it done. No one cares about your opinion. No one cares about how you feel. Get it done.
I always preach, boy, not to cut you off, but that's what I'm saying. Like, parents need to prepare you for life, because what I figured out as well, my paradigm shift, and if you wanted to add that, regardless, you're gonna have to get whatever done. Like, nobody cares.
Yeah.
And I've been in situations where I nearly haven't gotten, and I'll admit it here. Listen, I'm on notice mode. I'll admit whatever now about work. There's sometimes aspects in work where I haven't gotten stuff done, and it could be down to like a lot of different things, or a lot of different like I'm not feeling good. I'm not. But regardless, they don't care. They want that action.
Care.
They want that action by EOD. End of the day, like regardless, I want that done.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't really have a choice but to. And that's what I'm saying. If parents did kind of waver and they did pander, like, they're not really preparing you kind of for that element of life.
Start
So
questioning yourself.
yeah,
You're not.
it's just about finding fine balance, I guess.
100%.
Yeah.
And like this kind of goes into like, let's just say, decision making in life. You kind of see people that just don't make any changes. They just kind of stay in the same place. But that's mainly because, like, they might have had parents that wavered on their own decisions, and their kids would then waver. You might have had parents that were like mad anxious, and then their kids end up being crippled with anxiety as well, and not like making a move, right? But then there's some that will be crippled with anxiety but do it anyway. Kind of like this is the first time ever, and I'm announcing this on the pod. I'm going to be traveling the world, in March, the 1st of March, and we're traveling the world for 4 months. So we've quit our jobs, we've handed our notices in, and this is the first time in my life I felt anxiety.
Yeah, because you would have never struck me as the type.
Yeah. I never was anxious about anything, but now I'm realizing, wow, like when I think about the decision, it's like, oh, wow, like, I'm thinking about a lot of stuff now, and it's a matter of I'm doing it it's to prove something to myself, that I can do something on my own. It's a more of I can do it. Instead of like, usually it's like, everything kind of goes the way I want, but now I can't actually predict what the future holds. Usually it's easy when you're in school, then you start working. Your future, like, you can plan for your future, but now take your income out of it. You're not earning anything anymore. You quit your job, and then you're just going to start traveling, and it's like you don't know what's going to come of that, because I'll be doing the pod, trying to build an agency, and it's like, oh man, then I'm just like, wow, so people live like this all day, every day. Whoa, gosh.
Yeah, and it's like you kind of have to put it on pause to focus on. Well, like you said, we said before, you want to continue with that sort of thing, but it's like you can't go as all in. But you need to focus on traveling and other aspects, like kind of, acclimatizing yourself to the place, immersing yourself in a place. Like a lot of your time might just be traveling and getting to know a bit more about yourself. And the thing is, like we talked, and even just in conversating with you tonight, like, it's kind of just, I've noticed a change in you. Do you know what I mean? Now you probably are more mindful, kind of, like, you can't take on everything, and the world is big and it's broad,
Massive.
And you're going to literally discover that. Like, the anxiety you're feeling is that I'm going XYZ around the world, and it's way out there, and it's different. Culturally, it's different. Everything is different. Environmentally, it's different. And you're realizing now you're just this one guy in this kind of broad world. You know what I mean? And you'll discover that now over time. What you realize is you can't take everything on, and you can't, like, rule the world sometimes. Yeah. Like, sometimes you need to take a step back and realize, like, this is the world. Let me just, acclimatize myself to the environment and get to know Tunji a bit more. Yeah. You know what I mean? And that's going to be a positive takeaway, I think, 100%. In the long run.
I think there's only things to gain from this trip. Like, there's only stuff to gain. There's nothing to really lose here, right? Because if the world's going to end, well, at least I got to travel it. And another
More
thing
if you didn't.
Yeah, 100%. Another thing I'm realizing is, like, I haven't even left yet, but I already feel as though I'm learning, more about myself than I would have thought, and I haven't even left yet, because now I'm realizing that, like, when you put yourself, like you said earlier, when you put yourself out into the world and you realize how small and insignificant you actually are, and it really just broadens your horizon. And that's why everyone that has traveled, that has come back, they have like this weird view of the world, like not even like a weird view, but they have this aura about them. Right?
They do.
They have this aura about them, and you can't quite put your finger on it. But they just have it about them. And I'm like, I want to know what that is. I need to understand what it is that they know that I don't know. Because every old person I've seen, the main reason I made the decision is because every person that's a little bit older, ask them what their regrets are. They like their main regret, I wish I traveled more.
Facts.
You know, so that's why I need to do it. And I think everybody needs to do it
Yeah.
at least once. Like while you're young, before you start having kids and stuff like that, just pack up your bags and go, man. Because work is not going anywhere. Money will always come back. Experiences, never.
Facts. You couldn't have said it better there. Like literally, I've obviously made the decision around the same time as well, which I did mention on my platform as well, that I'll be taking the leap as well to move. And that was a large factor, a large influencer to it. Like, definitely, I wanted to discover myself. Most importantly, I wanted my own independence. So I wanted my own independence. Like, we're in a climate where, you know, sometimes you're not as lucky enough to find a place to rent, or even better yet, buy a house, that sort of thing. Like, everybody's aware. I don't need to get too much into the housing climate in Ireland right now. Everybody that's within Ireland knows, they get it. But yeah, that's mainly it. Like, the next, you kind of have to look at the next alternative. And, you know, largely a lot of Irish people in their mid-20s, they're looking at Australia, they're looking at Canada, they're looking at them places. So, not to sound hipster, I did always have Canada in mind.
Yeah.
Not to sound like a hipster, I did, you know, Six God, Drizzy Drake, all that thing, you know. So I wanted Toronto initially, but obviously crime rates are a bit high in Toronto. It's a bit more expensive. I think it's one of the more expensive cities in the world. But so the next alternative again was Vancouver. So I went with Vancouver. It was something that like kind of in the genesis of planning it, I was only doing a part-time job, pandemic kind of thing. Then it got more realistic when I got my 9-to-5 job, steady salary, just put 200, 300 away, you know, 100 minimum, and you know, by within a year you'll have the money for
sure
to travel, and that was really and that's what it really amounted to. So, it was a tough decision, which I discuss a lot, kind of on my podcast. That what was partially kind of keeping me here was just, you know, we did very well, kind of, as a podcast last year, kind of like we got the Black and Irish nomination and stuff like that, and we were getting more visibility on us. Like, you know, stuff had changed. You were going out and stuff, and people were like, "Oh, you know, I love your podcast," and stuff like that that alone can keep you there, because it's like I'm making someone's day. Yeah. You know, I'm influencing. Yeah, the recognition, all that stuff. That alone can kind of just keep you there. Like, it's like I either keep doing that and the platform gradually builds, but it's kind of like I needed to find out a bit more about myself, and I needed to discover myself, and I had to realize that, yeah, that's what I'm saying. If you get caught, sometimes the dangers of, especially being in content, right, you can get caught in a bubble. So you can get caught in a bubble of being kind of within the Black and Irish industry and being within Black and Irish bubble and just being within the content bubble in Ireland. I think I need this time to kind of go out, broaden my horizons, get to know myself a little bit more. Maybe hopefully network, see more people kind of in that sort of aspect. So that was a decision. You know, me and my girlfriend have been striving towards that for the good most of a year, kind of just working away, saving away. So yeah, I just thought the time was right then to book flights, and I'll be the same as Tunji. I'll be going in March. So yeah, that's it's. I told you off mic anyway. I'm the type, I don't get excited till I'm there. Yeah, it feels quite surreal at the moment. But it'll kind of come to reality, I think, maybe 2 nights away, two sleeps away, that sort of thing, you know. So, man. Yeah.
And did you feel any anxiety about the decision?
Absolutely. I'll never hide my anxiety. Like, generally, I'm a guy that suffers kind of from anxiety, and I'll never kind of you know, some people have it, some people don't. You know, each person's their own person. But I do. I get a bit of anxiety about these things. Like, I'll probably have social anxiety for starters. So trying to go somewhere. Like, naturally, I'm an approachable guy, and I'll always kind of make friends wherever I go. Kind of culturally, I try to adjust myself. I've always had to do that as well, kind of just even being in Ireland too. But I'll always kind of make friends. But I still have them aspects of social anxiety, just the anxiety of being overwhelmed about the task. Because the first month of this is definitely going to be hard.
Yeah, for sure.
Until you set into it. Like, I've talked to people that have been in Canada and stuff, and they're like, the first routine of this is going to be difficult. It's going to be hard until you fall into your routine again. Yeah. Which hopefully is a better routine. Now, we were only talking about routines and stuff. Hopefully this is a more interesting routine. But the goal, ironically, in all of this is to fall into my routine then in Canada. And then when I fall into my routine in Canada, then I can start discovering new things. And, you know, it's different to kind of Ireland. There might be more kind of avenues and facilities and stuff to, you know, have fun and do that sort of thing. So yeah,
Yeah.
hopefully just a year or two of fun, discovering myself, and kind of finding out what my limitations are as well. And yeah, hopefully come back a changed guy, as cliche as it sounds.
For sure, man. I think that's what it is. I think we're striving. I think this is a journey of self improvement, but self discovery
And self-awareness, yeah.
self discovery, self awareness, self improvement. Trying to do all of those things to try and get a better understanding of yourself, see what your limitations are, see what the world is, feel other cultures and stuff like that, so that you have a good enough grasp of what's actually out there, than what's on the news. And in terms of trying to better yourself, will also realize who our real friends are as well. Because that's one thing. Because you might think that you have a lot of friends until you leave, and then
until you're the out of sight, out of mind
exactly.
guy.
And that's where it gets interesting, because I've seen it happen with people that leave, and I'm not even in their top 5 closest friends that they talk to, but I'm the one that's keeping up to date with them.
I had that experience with a friend too,
that they experience on a day to day.
I found out I was FaceTiming them the most. Yeah. So they were kind of just like, listen, David, just get prepared when you go there. It's out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
So, and that's no disrespect. Again, the whole point of this is to find out you are so, not to sound pessimistic or something, but you're so insignificant in this world.
Yeah,
and you might be in other people's lives. They have a lot going on. So I've never taken offense. I've never said, Tunji knows I'm the guy that's slow at replying on text. Oh my God.
Bro.
This guy had to out me.
He's not
he had
slow
to
at
out
replying.
me.
He doesn't reply.
I don't reply. And I want to say genuinely from the bottom of my heart, even to Tunji as well, never ever take it personally, because my mind might be just going spiraling kind of thing. Yeah. So it's never a matter of, I don't like you, so I'm not getting back to you. It's just literally my mind is spiraling. Yeah. There's a lot. So I kind of empathize when someone isn't reaching out to me or someone's not. But that's just me, because I look at it from an empathetic angle. Yeah. But genuinely, I do feel I never get offended. As a teenager, I used to get offended when I didn't get invited. If they even arranged a group call but I wasn't involved, little things like that used to jade me. But I'm not significant in their life. Yeah. I might not be significant in their life, and that's the harsh reality of it.
100%. You have to learn to be alone. Sometimes, and when you realize it's going to be an interesting experience, because a lot of people that see me on the internet now, a lot of people that I kind of grew up with think that my full-time job is something to do with media, because I do a podcast and
you
I'm
sell
posting
yourself
and stuff like that. Do you know what I'm saying? People think that this is my full-time job, this is what I do.
Yeah.
And that's so funny to me, right? Because I'm actually an engineer. I went to college. I did the 3 years, but they don't even know what I did afterwards. But then they'd say, "Oh yeah, Tunji, me and Tunji are good friends." No, we're not. You don't even know what I did. You weren't even invited to my wedding.
The thing is,
do you know what I'm
the
saying?
thing is, people think they can relate to you. But that's the thing. You're doing something good there if people think they are almost as much in the room with you or they're friends with you.
Yeah.
You're making content then that resonates with them, I think.
For sure.
But I think that some people come up to you and they think they know you. They think they have you figured out. I get it.
Yeah, it doesn't really make any sense. So it's and once you leave and you come back and be a different person, because you will be a different person after you've traveled, right? That you might not be able to relate to the same people that you were good friends with when you left. That's another thing you need to realize. You might lose friends. You might lose people that were deemed as close to you when you're here, and when you leave, and then you change, and not even change, but you what's the word? You grow. Your growth is different to a lot of people, because let's just think about it. A lot of people that you might talk to now would be the same people when you return, but you're not the same guy.
Yeah.
So they're trying to relate to the Dave of today, 2023, February, and then not 2026, February. That's a different Dave. That's 3 years.
I had the experience with a friend. Yeah, he definitely changed up after he emigrated for a little bit. But that's the thing. It's not like it's a new person. They've just discovered themselves more.
Exactly.
And environment has almost kind of fast-tracked that process.
Yeah.
So it's literally you're in a new environment now, new people. Culturally, you've probably tapped into yourself a bit more. The thing is with culture, because even with culture as well, some people culturally are more blunt than others. So imagine just moving anywhere and you're even within a culture where people are more blunt with you. The self-discovery there is going to be like accelerated. Like it's going to be you're going to discover yourself a lot more if you go to a place where people are more straight up with you. Now I heard maybe Canada is a bit different. People are still a bit kind of passive aggressive and they won't really say it with their chest, you know. But these places, even where you're going to, like when you deeper, like the Thailands and like culturally people can be different. Like you can literally go to France, for instance, and they always say, oh, people in France are a bit more blunt.
Yeah.
So environment can kind of, you know, just make you discover a bit more about yourself if you kind of immerse yourself in an environment where, you know, culturally you do have to be a bit more honest with yourself and a bit more vulnerable, and then the culture itself is honest with you, you know, and if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So definitely, like I say all that to say, environment will definitely kind of fast track self-discovery.
I think that's what we're on. We're on a journey of self-discovery right now. Understanding ourselves better so that we can understand people better. But also, you know, developing to be the men and the fathers that we want to be in the future. You know, because that's really what is always on my head. It's like always trying to be the father that I need to be in order to raise the healthiest children possible with what I have today.
Yep.
Right? Because I didn't personally experience much trauma. Right, and the trauma that I did experience, that was the paradigm shift when my mom was in the hospital, and that shifted me. All right, and it also reinforced to me that I'm a lot stronger than I thought I was. But now I'm seeing what that process was like, and it's like I was the man of the house at the time because my dad was actually he wasn't in the country, he was traveling. So as a result, I was the only one there, and I had to be kind of the rock for my family. I was the only one that would go and see my mom in the hospital. Everyone else was too they couldn't bring themselves to do it.
Bear it, yeah.
You know, they couldn't bear it. But I did it every day, and I'd come home, give them reports, even though I'd go there, start crying. You know, such a hard process for me seeing her in the hospital like that, and the way she looked. You know, it just didn't look like my mom, the one that's full of life, the one that's always jumping, laughing, and stuff like that. Like I couldn't. Like I still get like PTSD thinking about it, you know, like that really affected me. But I think that is what it means to be a man.
Yeah.
To go down the road that nobody's willing to go down, you know, to go through the road least traveled. And that is the progress of self-discovery because not everybody can discover themselves.
I think you need hardship.
Yeah.
Which is the road kind of undiscovered, like you said. And yeah, bro, like I never really got to talk to you about that properly because naturally it's something that's tough, so you don't really go into discussion too much about it. But I never really got to talk to you about that properly. Like it is very commendable, like kind of the mental fortitude I think you needed for that. I could never imagine, like, you know what I mean, kind of, because like we said, we had a conversation that you need your parents, and you know I've had a few scares with my mom in the past as well, and kind of like the same sort of thing. I hear it go, listen, like we had a few scares, but thank God, because I know David needs his mommy. You know what I mean? So it is nothing tougher, man, especially when it's the mother as well in the equation.
Oh, for sure.
When it's the mother in the equation. So I just wanted to say, kind of off script, like, no, it is very commendable and stuff like that. And yeah, like I said, you only come out of it stronger. You come out of it stronger, guys.
Oh,
so
for sure.
I'm kind of, I'm proud of you for handling that, like the way you did, kind of
Thanks,
thing.
man.
And I know, you know, I didn't know about it and I wasn't able to discuss it with you at the time, but yeah, man, no, I'm very, very kind of because I obviously listened to the first podcast when you came back, and I was wondering as well, kind of like what happened to Tunji's pod and the time where I was the same, no cast kind of ceased to exist.
Yeah.
But I was more importantly kind of wondering about the hiatus, and sometimes you don't really want to be intrusive. Like you told me, like, oh, you could have just texted me, but I didn't know what way to even approach that.
Nobody even knew what was even going on.
Nobody even knew what was going on.
So
just to kind of be essentially dealing with that by yourself, which me, from a personal perspective, I always kind of advise and I always kind of advocate talking to people about, of course, but the fact that you did that is just, it's tough, like, do you know what I mean? And it builds a mental toughness and a fortitude. So yeah, man, like, just, I say all that to say, just big ups to kind of how you handled that.
Nice one, man. Appreciate
and you
that.
got everything in return, you know, like, I hope your mom's in good health.
Oh, she's much better.
Much better health. Like,
Much
you
better
got
health,
everything in return.
recovered,
Yeah.
everything. You know, like, you know, if people don't know what we're talking about, go listen to the first episode. I detail all of those things. The link will be here. And like, it was very interesting. That gave me some self-discovery, and now it's like, okay, cool. Now that I've discovered myself in that area, that was like personal growth. Okay, cool. I graduated to the next level. So taking the jump to travel into the unknown, and it's not like me to feel like anxious about things, the fact that I feel anxious, that just tells me I'm making the right decision. You know, if you don't feel anxious about something that you typically never, because I always talk about traveling the world, I always talk about it, but now it's concrete. Tickets paid for, we're going.
Yeah.
Accommodation booked, we're going for 4 months straight, you know, and we're taking nothing with us. We're taking camera equipment, laptops, and, you know, and some clothes. Going to be basically backpacking for 4 months, you know. So I'll be going
It'll be a
into,
ride, man. It'll be fun.
you know, it's gonna be insane. But it's like the fact that, you know, it's finally happening and I'm going for it, diving into the unknown. That is what it means to be a man, in my opinion.
Well, I think that in general just is what it means to be alive.
Yeah.
Like they say part of being alive is kind of not on a dramatic level. But part of being alive is obviously being aware of your mortality and getting anxious about them things sometimes, and realizing that anything can happen in any day, and especially when you experience certain traumas and that sort of thing, you realize then over time that certain things can happen in certain days, and you know, and just even stuff like traveling, like you realize kind of how broad the world is, how you're going to the unknown, where you could go Thailand and it's nothing that you expected.
Yeah.
Every place could be so different, and you know there is an anxiety that's built, but I think it's like it's more of an excitement disguised as an anxiety, because you're kind of just a bit shifty and a bit excited about it, but it's also like, what lies ahead kind of thing. But that's, if you didn't care about stuff like that, then you know, you, as generic as I'm gonna sound super cliche, you wouldn't be alive. You know what I mean? You wouldn't be enthusiastic and up for doing this if you weren't nervous about it. It just shows that you care kind of thing, you know. So,
And that's why it's interesting, because one thing I'm realizing is a lot of people would never go and do it.
No.
What we're doing, you know, like you said that you're an anxious person by nature, and you're taking a jump like this, you know, to actually go off and do this. So
like, sometimes I don't think I'm the person built to be doing it.
yeah,
It's just I have to
and
find
that's
that
the
out.
thing. Like you're literally beating your own self doubt. You're like, you know, you're challenging your own self doubt. You know, because you have those doubts, and it's like, I shouldn't be. I'm not the type of person to do that. But you're going against those beliefs to reinforce that you are the type of person that will do it, and you're doing it. I am the type of person that's doing it because I've done it. I'm taking the steps to step out into the unknown. You're taking the steps into the unknown. You know, you're actually like doing it. And that's what it really means to, like, you know, men are about action, right? And you're taking action. Although you have these things that are kind of pulling you back, ultimately the voice of the real you is louder than the one of the self-doubt.
Yeah.
And you're listening to that one, and that's what it really means, right? You listen to the voice of yourself more than the voice of your self-doubt. There's a real you, and then there's a self-doubt kind of version of you, and you need to silence that voice as much as you possibly can when you're living in this life, because that's the one that wants to halt your potential. I call that the devil, right? He wants to halt your potential. He doesn't want you to grow, but this thing is within you. But there's another side that wants you to grow, that wants you to achieve, that wants you to be better, wants you to go through these hard times in order to become a better person. But that voice that's in there that's trying to pull you back, to stop you from figuring out what your potential is the one that most people listen to. Most people listen to that voice that's telling them, you know, you can't do that. You're not the type of person that can travel the world. It's not meant for a person like you. It's for a person like that. You can't do these things. It's for somebody else. That's not you. So that's why you need to ultimately do these things. You do it anyway, right? You outwork your self-doubt. And once you outwork your self-doubt, what comes from that? It's confidence, you know? So
and like I said again, environment can amplify that as well. And what you said, like literally, like environment can amplify kind of that voice in your head. Like if I'm stuck in old Balbriggan every single day in my life kind of thing, then the self-doubt will it'd be more prevalent, like the self-doubt kind of thing. And it's like what you said. It's like what you said, like, I was listening to Diary of a CEO, and he had the Happiness Guru on. Do you listen to that podcast?
I do, yeah.
Diary of a CEO,
really
the
good.
Happiness Guru. Yeah, he had him. I forget what his name is. Do you remember his name?
No.
I forget what his name. Yeah.
I didn't watch that one.
Biologically, there's a part of your brain that's programmed to do that, to be the voice in your head. And he said when you almost compartmentalize it, like that's one side of your brain there, that's the good side, and then almost personify the evil part. Oh, that's Becky. He called his brain Becky. He said, oh, Becky's having a bad day. Let's put Becky in time out. So put your brain in time out when it's thinking the thoughts and the self-doubt. I know it's easier said than done, but you just have to almost kind of personalize that thing, because it becomes kind of a bigger beast kind of when, you know, when you make it out to be that. Do you know what I mean? Like, you don't let that personified part of your brain, like the other part of your brain, literally manifest into you.
Yeah.
You know, because you see a lot of self-deprecating guys because their head is moving on overdrive kind of thing about that self-doubt, the evil part of the brain, the Becky or whatever, or like you said, the devil, like always kind of putting stuff in it, and they manifest before that becomes their entire character, their personal trait. They self-deprecate, and you know they think negatively, and that mirrors into how you live,
Yeah.
and it mirrors into society and
Goes
stuff
into your
like that.
everyday.
You gotta be delusional, man.
Yeah.
A little bit of delusion that never hurt anybody.
For sure.
Like you gotta think you're that guy as well, you know, and you gotta think, you know, I'm him, you know, like that's the thing, and you gotta understand that you can absolutely do these things. Be a bit more delusional, guys.
Yeah. Outwork your self-doubt.
Yeah.
Everybody has it, but you just have to kind of give yourself some unquestionable belief in the actions you've taken. A lot of people have false confidence, right? And I see myself having that sometimes as well.
Yeah.
Having false confidence because I don't really know about something, so why am I even confident about this thing, right? But that's because it's an illusion that I've created. But if I was actually truly confident in something, I'd have nothing to prove to anybody.
Yeah.
Right? Because I know that I can do that type of thing. That self-confidence is built through, it's battle tested. Like you need to put yourself in battle. You can't be confident and never have been tested. You can't be confident and never have gone through trials and tribulations to get to where you need to get to. Like what you were saying, you need to listen to the other side. And that's actually why I think a lot of people have like depression. A lot of people self-diagnose themselves with depression, right? Because I was getting a lot of comments on one of my shorts on YouTube when I talked about the depression episode, right? When I said, if you're depressed, go for a run every day for like a month and try to get a six-pack and come back to me and tell me if you're still depressed. That applies to the people that are self-diagnosing themselves, right? That aren't clinically tested, because a lot of people aren't clinically depressed, right? They just basically label themselves that because of what they're going through, and they might have went on Google and looked up symptoms of depression.
So they say
but
never
you haven't gone and actually got a test to see if you're clearly there's a chemical imbalance in your brain. But then somebody commented that was actually depressed, right? And he said, I'm clinically depressed, and what you're saying in this video is right, but it doesn't fully shut down that voice in your head, right? But it helps. And he was being honest. And I said, thank you so much for being honest. It helps. So a lot of these people that are self-deprecating and self-diagnosing themselves with depression, it's because, like what you said, you're listening to the voice and you're letting that dark voice, that demon, manifest in ways to kill you internally.
Facts.
You know?
Facts. I feel like I had a point there, and I feel like I had something to kind of support that. Do you know what? It'll come back to me. But yeah, no, I fully agree. Like, definitely, like it will kind of manifest. Oh yeah, it was about sometimes like definitely like everything you said there, I fully support. Yeah, like just find ways to try and nullify it. Like sometimes it's not as simple as, oh, you know, it'll just be eradicate depression if you just do that. I'm a guy that was literally depressed because I didn't like how I looked, and then I stopped. Well, not like I'm literally supporting your example now. I wasn't clinically diagnosed. I probably wasn't depressed. I probably just needed to go out and get my 10K steps. Yeah, there we go. I found that out.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree with what you said, but also on the self-confidence thing. Yeah, I did want to focus in on that, because the self-confidence or the false confidence thing and what you said, people need to absolutely have that. Like it's an emotional control mechanism. Like, do you know what I mean? Like if I didn't walk into rooms and have self-confidence, I'd fold. And I've had conversations with other content creators, and like even this girl, she'll know exactly I'm referring to her when she says it. Every single time I've had a conversation with her, she said, listen, my first purpose is when I'm actually anxious, I want to walk in, I want to control a room. Like I want to take control of a room, because if I don't do that in my anxious state, I fold. So I more or less say that to just say, have false confidence. Like, don't have too much of it. Yeah. Because a lot of people, funny enough, they can read that. I can read if someone has false confidence, and I can read and I can say, if anything, ironically, you're insecure. Yeah. So find that fine balance of, you know, you're able to open up and be vulnerable, but also understand that sometimes you have no choice but to be false confident in a room and try to take control of a room. So
interesting.
Yeah.
So you said that you have anxiety as well, right?
Yeah.
So let's go into it. When you discovered it, what it feels like on a day-to-day basis, an example of what it's like, and then what you're doing to try and like control it in a sense, or not control it, but rather how are you dealing with it? So it's a 4-part.
So this is so to answer your question in 4 parts, I always kind of knew I had anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
So I always have this joke that I made on Charger when I said I was trying on my confirmation suit and I was in Kildare Village and I got really anxious about trying on suits. I got an anxiety attack on the place. I made it into like this, you know, joke, this jovial kind of thing, but genuinely it was something that was quite peak, you know, at the time for me. But that's when I first discovered I had elements of anxiety. I bite my nails a lot, do that sort of thing. But I think where it really kind of took a shift was kind of probably into my late teens, where I'd attend certain things and I'd just get panicky. I wouldn't know how to talk to someone. I'd have that part of my brain trick me and go, which I'm still kind of battling now, where I go to something and I'm like, I literally think, oh, they don't even like me. They just feel they had to invite me or they had to bring. And it was kind of weird when I announced that I was leaving to move to another country. I didn't know kind of the love I had off people. And I fully believe in that whole kind of give people flowers while they're still around kind of thing, because I didn't know kind of the reception I just got and the text I got off people when I said they're moving. They're like I had people go, listen, you're amazing on the podcast. You're one of my favorites on the podcast. Like, you're like a pillar to Black Irish kind of culture, you know. I didn't even know this sort of stuff about myself. Like, I had that insecurity still and that anxiety, you know, that, you know, and sometimes to an extent like that imposter syndrome that, you know, I didn't belong here, or, you know, I shouldn't be doing this, or, you know, I'm just an anxious guy acting confident sometimes in my everyday life. That sort of thing. So I'm doing stuff to kind of try counteract it. You know, what the first thing I did was accept it. So the first thing I did was accept that I do have anxiety, and anxiety is sort of a thing that's kind of sporadic. It'll come and it'll go, and, you know, it'll come on a rare occasion, and other days it might not even come at all. It might come at stages you expect it to come, and it might not even show. And then in random aspects, like I was nervous probably in the first 2 minutes of this podcast. I shouldn't be nervous in this podcast. Like, literally, I'm just in a room with you. I know you. We're friends. We have rapport. Like, it's grand. But just little to like you just have the nerves at the start. And I even did culture check content in December, and that's I remember my voice was even shaky at the start of that, because the anxiety just. Sometimes you can't kind of narrow it down to what it is. It's just you feel anxious. So all you have to kind of do it. So I sometimes for me it's like turbulence. So you experience turbulence on the fly, but it's very fleeting. You'll experience turbulence for 2 minutes. Oh my God, I'm gonna die. The plane's rocking, and then that's it. That's my thing with anxiety. So sometimes what I used to do is I used to kind of fold under a kind of thing. But sometimes you have to accept that you just have to ride out the anxiety for a minute. And it'll go. It's like turbulence. Right. So sometimes I treat anxiety like turbulence. Like, you just have to accept that's here. Don't try to do anything. Just accept that's here. Like, if your voice is shaky for the first 2 minutes of any sort of content I do, especially being someone that has anxiety in content, like it's a bit kind of counteractive of each other. It's a bit like, why is he doing content if he has? Sometimes what I did there in the past to kind of, so I developed an alter ego. Like, this isn't me. This isn't David doing this. This is like podcast Dave doing this, or this is content Dave doing this. It's not me doing it. So what I did over time was I kind of developed a caricature of myself, or an alter ego of myself. I think what sort of helped was being vulnerable on mic or on camera or any content I do. Just being vulnerable. You don't have to keep up with an act if people know who you are. So if I tell people I'm anxious, I don't have to sit here every week and try to act like I'm not anxious. Yeah. Because people already know that's me characteristically. And I felt like a lot of people have related to me kind of saying how I feel, or saying, I always got that thing, oh, you're the sensitive one on the podcast kind of thing, you know. So I leaned into it a lot more. And that's, I don't know if I'm answering your question in 4 parts.
No, you are.
But that's just literally how I discovered it. So I discovered it kind of in my teens, kind of early age, like 11, 12. I'd say towards my late teens is when I kind of noticed it a bit more. And when you notice it, you kind of have to act on that then. It's like anything. It's like if you discovered an illness, if you discovered a mole, if you discovered a spot, you have to act on it. You know what I mean? You have to try to tap into why that's there and what's happening there. You know what I mean? Right. So I'm trying to act quickly when I see my anxiety, or I accept that it's there, and I try to ride it out. So I try to ride it out. I try to engage in different things to take my mind off it. Like, the gym is the one place in the world. Sometimes even doing a podcast is the one place. There's 2 places in the world: gym and a podcast, and sometimes where I forget about it for like an hour. So that's sometimes it. you know, I have a lot of different anxieties, to be honest. Like I'm a bit of a hypochondriac as well.
What's that?
It's where it's like I heard someone before describe it as like health OCD, where it's just you get anxious. Like hypochondriac is basically like I'm the type if I find something on my arm, I think I'm dying or something.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? I just get really anxious about it. I get freaked out about it, and like I know people that have had bigger problems and they just think, oh, it's grand. But I'm the type that gets anxious about it and it manifests into something, and I'm like, so I've tried to learn just to act on that quick. If you see something, if you have a cough and you're worried about the cough, just go to the doctor or something, or just do something, or try remedy it, or try do something, you know? Especially during the pandemic times, like my hypochondriacness, if that's a word, kind of amplified, you know, during that time, where it was a bit like I didn't know what the COVID was and stuff like that. And when I got it, I was like, okay, this is calm, but you manifest it into something that shouldn't be. So I have different types of anxiety. Like I have social anxiety, I've health anxiety, different kinds. Mostly down to them two, I'd say.
Okay. Explain social anxiety to me, because I don't know if I have it or not. But you know, like, what would the definition be for like you?
Social anxiety,
Personal experience.
My experience of social anxiety is being an extrovert in a room full of introverts, and then going into a room full of extroverts and being an introvert, because it's kind of like you kind of put on this act in the first place that you're this like outgoing person, and sometimes we're trying to act like you're an outgoing, you can't keep up with it. So it's just kind of like my social anxiety is like you walk into a place and you kind of you not try to overcompensate, but you know you're overly friendly or overly eager sometimes because you're afraid people won't like you.
Yeah.
So at large, my social anxiety is just feeling like I don't belong in a room, imposter syndrome, and feeling like people don't like me. And I'm not that person that tries. I'm always very honest with people, and I always carry myself that this is me. Either like me or you don't. But it's a bit of a paradox, because like I'm this person that doesn't care what you think about me, but you know I can't stand the idea of being in a room full of people that don't like me. You know, so that's what gets me anxious. Or sometimes you just think in your head. I think we talked about it before when you did a collab with the M Pod, and me and Dej opened up about it a little bit. You just have this mentality that no one likes you. That's just it. So you get anxious about the idea, and what I've had to navigate with this content thing and the podcast thing, you have no choice but to network. So it's all willy-nilly just sitting here kind of doing a podcast every week, and you know people tell you you're good at podding, and people tell you, but I've had people tell me like, oh no, the podcast is sick, or you're sick at what you do, but you need more social presence. You need to be more out there, and work you get told is you need to be more visible. These sort of things. So even stuff like I used to get shaky on conference calls when I was the one conducting the meeting, that sort of thing. But in life, like, you have no choice but to kind of be more visible in these areas, like within content and within work, 9 to 5 work kind of thing. So I just learned that you have no choice but to do it. So you can either do like 2 or 3 certain things. You can either, you know, develop the kind of alter ego that this isn't me. For 5 minutes, it's gonna be a different David. Write it out like turbulence, and then just accept that's there. And you know it's this fleeting thing, and you know if you make it bigger than what it should be, you're actually going to limit yourself to a lot of things. So like, you know,
stay on that.
Yeah.
If you limit yourself, explain that a bit further. If you limit yourself to what it is, you're what?
So I've not went to events because of my anxiety.
Right.
So I've not done collabs because of my anxiety.
Yeah.
And it's stuff that you look back on and you'll regret. You know, in that sense, like you'll regret it. You know what I mean? So, you know, even it could be something as simple as maybe I got a bit anxious on the way here because I'm a bit like, you know, I don't know how a podcast's gonna play out, that sort of thing. You know, it's a different environment for me, sort of thing. But it's just like you'll either say no or you say, oh, I don't want to do it, and then you'll be like, that could have been a good time. Because me, I'm having a deadly time right now podcasting. Sure. And it's like, do you know what I mean? You could easily not do it and be like, you're limiting yourself. So what I've did is put my best foot forward in these sort of things. Like literally just kind of go, you know, fuck it and just do it. You know what I mean? Just see what it's like. The worst thing it can be, worst case scenario it can be. And to be honest, I have put myself forward for stuff and it's been as bad as my anxiety imagined it. But sometimes that's just how it is, and sometimes people won't receive you as well, kind of thing. But yeah. I've had more things that I've went to that have been absolutely like amazing experiences than I've had that,
Went how you thought it would.
that I've went how I thought. Within a few months, I've done like a live show. Hopefully, we have another live show coming up. That was a battle as well. Like me and Dej looked at each other every single day for like 3 weeks. See, the thing is, ironically, for that I was excited. But I remember even me, Deji, and Jordan would have conversations like once a week for like the 3 or 4 weeks leading up to it. We were like, I'm actually nervous, It's like I'm nervous, but weirdly, I got excited. So another way of how I dealt with my anxiety is trick your anxiety for excitement. So trick your anxiety to be almost like for instance, like with an interview or everyday sort of things or a conference call. Trick your anxiety into being you're excited to meet these people.
Right.
You're not anxious. You're just excited to meet these people. So I've tricked my anxiety before so I did that largely for the live show. I tricked my anxiety to be, oh no, I'm excited to meet these people and showcase what I'm about. So I remember that being an absolute hit, that live show. I really, really enjoyed it. So just different things like that, understanding that if you want to be in the scene, I've had this conversation with my sister, like if you want to be in the scene, you have no choice but to immerse yourself and make yourself visible, and I don't do it as much as I should. I don't do it as much. I'm just going to hold this so it doesn't keep vibrating. I don't do it as much as I should. I don't do it as much as other people in the industry, but I'm working on that.
Yeah.
And I've had conversations with these people in the industry and they've been like, look, listen, you've got to be, I've had conversations with 2 particular people and they know who they are. They're very, very esteemed people in the industry, and they've told me, listen, you've got to be up on these stages at these things. Like, you've got to be, if you're a rap performer, you not only have you got to be networking, you've got to be up on the stage. But we're kind of dealing with this sort of thing and trying to navigate. You've got to accept that you have your limitations. So don't try to do too much. So don't go from being anxious to being like, oh, I'm going to do the most at this thing.
Yeah.
Just go to as many of these things as possible. Find out a bit more about yourself. Find out what you can and can't do with these things. Like, I can go up to people at these things and chat to anybody at these things and hit it off, and boom, next thing I know, they're on the podcast. And you sit there and you kind of think, that wouldn't have happened if I didn't just put myself forward and do that and go up to that person. But also, don't try to be the person, if you know you're a stiff guy, you're a stiff, anxious guy, so don't be the guy that goes up on stage. Because you're doing too much. You've almost bit off more than you can chew.
Right.
So that's really it. I don't know if that's made sense. I really went off on a tangent.
Bro, honestly, like that's actually the key part of the episode right there. I think that's actually where the most value would have came from for the people listening.
I appreciate that, yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Because you're giving your actual experience. You've lived it. You're going through it. This is how you're dealing with it.
Yeah.
That's valuable for somebody,
Yeah.
Somebody could be listening right now, going through the same thing, but not gotten to this level of maturity where they know how to deal with it as much, or they're still being affected by it and it's stopping them from doing certain things.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really good place to actually end this on a high note.
I appreciate it, man. Yeah.
Man. So I really appreciate you for coming down
brother,
today, man.
Brother, anytime. Well, not anytime now because we're out of the country.
We'll go out of the country soon.
But
so.
I thoroughly enjoy this, man. I'm really, really glad. Another
sure.
thing on my list, I could say, I'm glad I showed up and I did it. And,
yeah,
it was great.
Exactly.
It was amazing. I really loved it.
He's outworking his self-doubt. That's exactly what we said.
Every single day.
Outwork your self-doubt. And before you know it, you'll be where you want to be. And even further. So, thank you, love, for listening, yeah? Appreciate you guys. And peace.
Peace. Thanks for having me.